Imagine walking into the gym without eating a single thing. No breakfast, no pre-workout snack, no protein shake. Just you, your body, and an empty stomach. Most people think this is a terrible idea. You need fuel to exercise, right? You need energy from food to power through your workout. But what if that's not entirely true? What if science says your body can actually perform better, burn more fat, and even protect your muscles when you exercise on an empty stomach? Today, we're diving deep into what really happens when you combine fasting with exercise. We'll explore why some people feel stronger and sharper when they train without eating. We'll look at which types of exercise work best during a fast and which ones you might want to avoid. And we'll cover how to train safely after you break your fast. Before we go further, a quick note. This is educational content, not medical advice. Everyone's body is different. If you have any health conditions or concerns, please talk to your doctor before trying fasted exercise. With that said, let's get into the science. To understand why fasted exercise can be so effective, we first need to understand where your body actually gets its energy. Your body stores energy in two main forms. The first is glycogen. Glycogen is simply glucose that's been stored in your liver and muscles. Think of it as your body's quick access energy. The average person stores about 400 to 500 grams of glycogen, which provides roughly 1,600 to 2,000 calories of energy. This supply typically lasts about 12 to 24 hours, depending on your activity level. The second form is body fat, and this is where things get interesting. Even a relatively lean person carries tens of thousands of calories stored as fat. That's enough energy to last for weeks, sometimes even months. Your body has an enormous reserve of fuel just sitting there waiting to be used. So here's the problem. Your body prefers to use glycogen first. Burning glycogen is faster and easier. It's the path of least resistance. So as long as glycogen is available, your body will keep reaching for it instead of tapping into your fat stores. Now here's something that might surprise you. The food you eat before a workout doesn't actually fuel that workout. Not directly anyway. When you eat something, it sits in your stomach for 2 to 5 hours while your body breaks it down. Then it moves to your small intestine where nutrients are absorbed over the next 4 to 12 hours. So the energy from your breakfast isn't available for your morning workout. That energy comes from what you ate yesterday. When you feel energized after eating before exercise, that feeling comes from hormones and expectations, not from the calories you just consumed. Your body releases hormones in anticipation of incoming fuel, and that makes you feel ready to go. But the actual energy, that's coming from your stored reserves. So what happens when you don't eat for 12 to 16 hours? Your glycogen starts running low. And when glycogen gets scarce, your body has no choice but to switch to burning fat. This process produces molecules called ketones, which serve as an alternative fuel source. And this is where fasted exercise becomes particularly powerful. There's a concept called metabolic flexibility. A healthy body can smoothly switch between burning glucose and burning fat depending on what's available. But if you eat constantly throughout the day, your body never needs to access its fat stores. It gets lazy at burning fat because there's always glucose around. Fasted exercise trains your body to become better at this switch. It teaches your system to efficiently use both fuel sources. Over time, this makes your metabolism more adaptable and more efficient. And this is just the beginning. Now let's look at what actually happens inside your body when you exercise in a fasted state. First, you burn significantly more fat. When you exercise without eating, your body doesn't have a fresh supply of glucose to work with. Insulin levels are low, And when insulin is low, fat is free to leave your fat cells and be used for energy. A comprehensive analysis published in the British Journal of Nutrition reviewed 27 studies involving 273 participants. The conclusion was clear. Aerobic exercise performed in a fasted state leads to significantly higher fat oxidation compared to exercise performed after eating. How much higher? Some studies suggest 20 to 30% more fat burning during fasted exercise. The explanation is straightforward. When you eat before exercise, insulin rises, and insulin essentially locks fat inside your fat cells, preventing it from being released and burned. When you fast, that lock is removed. Your body can freely access its fat stores and use them for fuel. Second, growth hormone increases dramatically. Growth hormone is produced by a small gland in your brain called the pituitary gland. It does two important things for your body. It helps build and repair muscle tissue, and it signals your fat cells to release stored fat for energy. Here's what's fascinating. Both fasting and exercise independently trigger growth hormone release. When you combine them, the effect is amplified significantly. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism followed 8 healthy men through different conditions. During exercise, growth hormone levels rapidly increased to more than 10 nanograms per milliliter. During 72 hours of fasting, growth hormone levels were about 3 times higher than normal throughout the day. Other studies have recorded increases of 5 to 14 times the baseline levels in both men and women. What does this mean for you? When you exercise while fasting, you're triggering growth hormone from 2 different sources simultaneously. This hormone helps protect your muscle mass while promoting fat breakdown. It's one of the key reasons why people who combine fasting with exercise often maintain or even build muscle while losing fat. Your body is remarkably smart. When food is scarce, it doesn't want to break down precious muscle tissue. Muscle is essential for survival, for movement, for finding food. So growth hormone rises to protect it. Third, insulin sensitivity improves significantly. Insulin sensitivity refers to how well your cells respond to insulin. When sensitivity is high, your body only needs a small amount of insulin to move glucose into your cells efficiently. When sensitivity is low, which is called insulin resistance, your body needs more and more insulin to do the same job. Over time, this can lead to a range of health problems. Here's why fasted exercise helps improve this. When you exercise, your muscles need glucose for fuel. During this process, your muscles become more receptive to taking in glucose, even without much insulin present. When you're fasting, insulin is already low to begin with. Combine these 2 factors, and your body learns to manage glucose more efficiently with less insulin. Research shows that exercising in a fasted state can improve insulin sensitivity more effectively than exercising after eating. And this improvement lasts for many hours after your workout ends. For long-term metabolic health, this is a significant benefit that compounds over time. Fourth, mental clarity increases noticeably. Many people report feeling more alert, more focused, and mentally sharper when they exercise on an empty stomach. This isn't just imagination or placebo effect. There's solid science behind it. Part of this comes from a protein called BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF supports the growth and development of nerve cells in the brain. It enhances learning, memory, and overall cognitive function. Studies show that both fasting and exercise increase BDNF production. When you combine them, levels may rise even higher. Another factor is ketones. When you fast, your liver produces ketones from fat. These ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier and provide energy directly to your brain. Your brain actually functions very efficiently on ketones. Some research suggests it may even prefer them over glucose in certain situations. There's also norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that increases during fasting. It promotes alertness and focus. It's the same chemical that activates when you need to react quickly to something important. Now there's an evolutionary perspective that helps explain all of this. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors didn't have refrigerators or grocery stores. They often woke up hungry and had to hunt or search for food before they could eat. If their bodies became weak and foggy when hungry, they wouldn't be able to catch prey or find food. They simply wouldn't survive. Those whose bodies performed well during fasting, who became sharper and more alert when hungry, had a better chance of survival. Over many generations, this trait was passed down through natural selection. Your body today still carries this ancient programming. It knows how to function well without food. This isn't a flaw in the system. It's a feature. It's how humans were designed to operate. Quick question for you. Do you usually eat before or after your workouts? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to know which approach you prefer. Now here's where things get practical. Not all exercise is created equal when you're fasting. Let's start with aerobic exercise at low to moderate intensity. This includes activities like walking light, jogging, easy cycling, or gentle swimming. The kind of exercise where you can still hold a conversation without gasping for air. This type of exercise is ideal for fasted training. At lower intensities, your body primarily burns fat for fuel. It doesn't need much glycogen. You can sustain this kind of activity for a long time without running out of energy, even when you haven't eaten for many hours. If you're new to fasted exercise, this is absolutely where you should start. Go for a morning walk or an easy bike ride before breakfast. See how your body responds before trying anything more intense. Next, let's talk about anaerobic exercise at high intensity. This includes HIIT workouts, sprinting, jump rope at maximum effort, or any exercise that leaves you breathless with your heart pounding hard. High-intensity exercise relies heavily on glycogen for fuel. When you push hard, your body needs quick energy and glycogen provides that. The challenge is that after 12 to 16 hours of fasting, your glycogen stores are already partially depleted. So you might feel weaker than usual during intense exercise if you haven't eaten. However, research offers some encouraging news. A study found that after 4 weeks of adapting to a very low carbohydrate diet, participants maintained their high-intensity exercise performance. Their bodies had learned to function effectively with less glycogen available. The key is adaptation. If you're new to fasted exercise, don't jump straight into intense HIIT sessions. Start with lower intensities and gradually work your way up as your body adjusts over several weeks. Finally, there's resistance training or weightlifting. You can lift weights while fasting. Many people do it successfully. Each heavy set will use some glycogen, but the elevated growth hormone helps protect your muscles during the workout. There's one important consideration though. Weight training creates tiny tears in your muscle fibers. That's actually the point of resistance training. Your body then repairs these tears, making the muscle stronger than before. But this repair process requires protein as raw material. If you lift weights and then continue fasting for many more hours afterward, your body won't have the building blocks it needs for proper repair and recovery. So the recommendation is to eat a protein-rich meal within a few hours after resistance training, even if you trained in a fasted state. Here's a simple summary for exercise selection. If you're just starting out with fasted training, stick to low-intensity aerobic exercise like walking or easy cycling. Once you're comfortable with that, you can increase to moderate intensity. After several weeks of adaptation, you can experiment with HIIT or weight training if you choose. But always listen to your body. Start light progress gradually and don't push too hard too soon. Now, knowing what to do during fasting is one thing, but some people shouldn't be doing fasted exercise at all. Let's cover who should avoid this and what warning signs to watch for. Fasted exercise is not appropriate for everyone. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, this is not the time to experiment with fasted training. Your body has increased nutritional demands. If you have a history of eating disorders, fasted exercise could trigger unhealthy patterns. Please work with a healthcare professional instead. If you have type 1 diabetes or use insulin, fasted exercise can be risky without proper medical supervision. Blood sugar management becomes much more complicated. If you have chronic kidney disease, your body handles electrolytes and waste products differently. Fasting adds additional stress. If you're underweight, you likely don't have adequate energy reserves for fasted exercise. If you take medications that must be taken with food, you'll need to eat regardless of your exercise plans. And if you're completely new to both fasting and exercise, don't start both at the same time. That's too much change at once. Get comfortable with one before adding the other. Even if fasted exercise is appropriate for you, there are warning signs that mean you should stop immediately. Severe dizziness that doesn't improve when you rest, heart palpitations or a racing heart that continues after you've stopped exercising, confusion or difficulty thinking clearly, which is the opposite of the mental clarity we discussed earlier, extreme weakness that prevents you from completing exercises you normally find easy, nausea or vomiting. Here's a simple rule. If any of these symptoms don't improve within 10 to 15 minutes of resting and drinking water, end your workout, eat something light, and consult a doctor if needed. One more important point about hydration and electrolytes. When you fast, your body loses water and minerals faster than usual. When insulin is low, your kidneys excrete more sodium and water. This is normal, but it means you need to be more intentional about staying hydrated. Symptoms of electrolyte imbalance include fatigue, muscle cramps, headaches, and dizziness. These can easily be mistaken for problems with fasted exercise itself, when really you just need water and minerals. The solution is simple. Drink plenty of water before, during, and after your workout. You can add a small pinch of salt to your water or use an electrolyte supplement. Nothing complicated is needed. All right, so you've made it through your fasted workout successfully. Now what? How you train after breaking your fast matters just as much as how you trained during it. Let's break this down into phases. The first phase covers the first 24 to 48 hours after you start eating again. During this time, your digestive system is restarting after its rest period. Insulin rises after your first meal as your body shifts from burning mode to storage and building mode. A significant amount of energy is being directed toward digestion and processing nutrients. For exercise during this phase, keep the intensity light. Walking, yoga, stretching or mobility work are all excellent choices. This is not the time to chase personal records or push yourself hard. Give your body time to make the transition smoothly. The second phase covers 48 to 72 hours after breaking your fast. During this time, glycogen in your liver and muscles is being steadily replenished. This process takes time, usually 24 to 48 hours, to fully restore your glycogen stores, depending on what you eat. Here's something beneficial to know. After fasting, your insulin sensitivity is higher than normal. This means your body uses carbohydrates more efficiently. If you want to refuel with carbs, this is actually a good time to do it because your body will handle them well. For exercise during this phase, you can start increasing intensity. Light to moderate resistance training is appropriate. But continue listening to your body. If you don't feel ready for more intensity, wait a bit longer. The third phase begins around 72 hours after breaking your fast. By now, your glycogen stores are mostly or fully restored. Your digestive system is working normally again. Your hormones have stabilized. You can return to your regular training intensity during this phase. However, don't try to compensate for any missed training by working out extra hard. Ease back in over your first 1 or 2 sessions before returning to full effort. Finally, let's talk about protein timing after a fast. After fasting, your body is in an optimal state for building and repair. Insulin sensitivity is elevated, so protein is absorbed more efficiently. Growth hormone remains elevated for 24 to 48 hours after fasting ends. This creates an ideal environment for muscle protein synthesis, but your body needs the raw materials to work with. Prioritize high-quality protein in your first meals after fasting. This doesn't need to be complicated. Eggs, fish, meat, legumes, or yogurt all work well. Spread your protein intake throughout the day rather than loading it all into one meal. Your body can only process so much protein at once, so distributing it evenly gives you better results. Let's bring everything together now. Exercising while fasting isn't a crazy idea. It's not reckless or dangerous when done properly. In fact, your body was designed to function well without constant food intake. When done correctly, fasted exercise can increase fat burning significantly. It can boost growth hormone, which protects muscle and promotes fat breakdown. It can improve insulin sensitivity, benefiting your long-term metabolic health. And it can enhance mental clarity and focus through ketones and BDNF. The key is understanding your body and making smart choices. Choose the right type of exercise for your fasting state. Start with low intensity and progress gradually over time. Pay attention to warning signs. Stay properly hydrated. And when you break your fast, give your body the protein and nutrients it needs to recover and build. That meal you eat before exercising. It's not providing immediate fuel like you might have thought. The energy for your workout comes from what you ate yesterday, from your glycogen stores, and from your body fat reserves. When you exercise while fasting, you're simply giving your body a reason to tap into those reserves. You're training your metabolism to be more flexible and efficient. And as our ancestors demonstrated over thousands of years of human survival, your body knows exactly what to do. Here's my question for you. Some trainers say you should never exercise on an empty stomach. Others swear it's the only way to train effectively. After watching this video, where do you stand? Is fasted exercise overrated, underrated, or just right? Let me know in the comments below. If someone you know has been wondering whether they should eat before working out, share this video with them. The science might change their perspective. And if this helped you understand your body a little better, subscribe so you don't miss future videos where we explore more fascinating aspects of how your body works. Next time, we'll explore what happens during your first 24 hours of fasting. The results might surprise you. Until then, take care of yourself. You've probably heard that belly fat is bad for your health. But what if I told you there's a type of fat hidden deep inside your body that's far more dangerous than the fat you can pinch? It wraps around your liver, your stomach, your intestines. You can't see it in the mirror. You can't grab it with your hands. But it's actively contributing to disease right now. This is visceral fat, And in this video, we're going to explore one of the most effective ways to get rid of it: fasting. Not because it's trendy, but because science shows it works in ways that regular dieting simply can't match. Before we dive in, please remember this is educational content, not medical advice. If you're considering any fasting protocol, talk to your healthcare professional first. Now let's start with the basics. There are two main types of fat in your body. The first is subcutaneous fat. This is the fat that sits right under your skin. It's the fat you can pinch on your belly, your thighs, your arms. When most people think about body fat, this is what they picture. But there's another type of fat that most people don't think about: visceral fat. This fat doesn't sit under your skin. It sits deep inside your abdomen, packed around your internal organs. It surrounds your liver, your stomach, your pancreas, your intestines. You can't pinch it. You can't see it directly. But it's there. And if you have too much of it, it's causing problems right now, whether you feel it or not. Here's why visceral fat is so much more dangerous than subcutaneous fat. It's not just sitting there doing nothing. Visceral fat is metabolically active. Think of it like a factory that never stops running. It constantly releases substances into your bloodstream: inflammatory chemicals, free fatty acids, hormones that disrupt how your body works. And here's the critical part: visceral fat has a direct connection to your liver through something called the portal vein. This means everything visceral fat releases goes straight to your liver first. It's like having a direct highway from this fat to one of your most important organs. When too many fatty acids flood into your liver, problems start to pile up. Your liver becomes less sensitive to insulin. It starts storing more fat. Your blood sugar regulation gets disrupted. Over time, this leads to conditions like fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. Studies have shown that people with high levels of visceral fat have significantly higher risks of cardiovascular problems, even if their overall body weight seems normal. In fact, researchers have found that visceral fat is more strongly linked to metabolic disease than almost any other measure of body fat. This is why two people can weigh exactly the same, but have completely different health profiles. One person might carry most of their fat under their skin, distributed across their body. Another might carry a significant portion deep inside their abdomen, wrapped around their organs. On the scale, they look identical. But inside, the second person faces far greater health risks. A large meta-analysis involving over 800,000 participants found that high visceral fat increases the risk of cardiovascular disease by 55%. It increases the risk of stroke by 45%. These are dramatic numbers. And they help explain why some people develop heart disease or diabetes despite not appearing significantly overweight. So the question becomes, how do you get rid of it? Many people try the obvious approach. They eat less. They cut calories. And yes, eating fewer calories than you burn will cause weight loss. But here's something interesting that research has revealed. When you simply cut calories while eating frequently throughout the day, your body doesn't necessarily target visceral fat first. You lose weight, but the visceral fat often stays stubbornly in place. Why does this happen? The answer has to do with a hormone called insulin. Every time you eat, your body releases insulin. Insulin's job is to help move nutrients from your blood into your cells. But insulin also has another important function. It tells your body to store fat, and it prevents your body from releasing fat that's already stored. When insulin is high, fat stays locked inside your fat cells. When insulin is low, fat can be released and burned for energy. Now think about how most people eat today. breakfast in the morning, a snack mid-morning, lunch, an afternoon snack, dinner, maybe something before bed. That's 5 or 6 eating occasions per day. Every single one triggers insulin release. This means insulin stays elevated for most of your waking hours. When insulin is constantly elevated, your body rarely gets the signal to release stored fat. It's stuck in storage mode almost all the time. And visceral fat, despite being dangerous, stays right where it is. This creates a frustrating cycle for many people. They eat less food, but they still eat frequently. Their total calories go down, so they lose some weight. But their insulin never drops low enough for long enough to really unlock that deep visceral fat. The number on the scale changes, but the dangerous fat around their organs remains stubbornly in place. This is where fasting changes everything. When you fast, you stop eating for an extended period. No food means no insulin spikes, and as the hours pass without food, your insulin levels drop lower and lower. Let me walk you through what happens in your body when you fast. In the first 0 to 12 hours after your last meal, your body is still processing the food you ate. Blood sugar is stable. Insulin is doing its job. Your body is using glucose, which is sugar from your food, as its primary fuel source. Your liver has a backup supply of glucose stored as glycogen, and it starts tapping into this reserve. Around the 12 to 16-hour mark, things start to shift. Your glycogen stores are running low. Insulin drops significantly. And now, your body needs to find another fuel source. It turns to fat. This is when fat cells start releasing their stored fatty acids into your bloodstream. Your body begins burning fat for energy. And here's what's particularly interesting. Visceral fat gets released faster than subcutaneous fat during this process. Why? Because of that direct connection to the liver we talked about earlier. The same portal vein that makes visceral fat dangerous also makes it more accessible. When your body needs fat for fuel, visceral fat is the first to respond. Between 16 and 24 hours of fasting, you're now fully in fat-burning mode. Insulin is low. Fatty acids are flowing. Your liver starts converting these fats into molecules called ketones, which your brain and muscles can use for energy. At this stage, visceral fat is actively being broken down. The longer you maintain this low insulin state, the more visceral fat you mobilize. Some people worry about feeling weak or tired during this process. And yes, in the early hours you might feel hungry. You might notice your energy dips slightly as your body makes the switch from burning glucose to burning fat. This is normal. It's your body adjusting to a different fuel source. But here's what many people find surprising. Once the transition is complete, usually somewhere between 18 and 24 hours, many people actually feel more alert and focused than usual. This isn't just psychological. When your body runs on ketones instead of glucose, it provides a steadier, more stable energy supply to your brain. No sugar spikes and crashes, just consistent fuel. Now you might be wondering about something. If your body is burning fat for fuel, what about your muscles? This is a common concern. People worry that fasting will cause them to lose muscle mass. Here's what the science shows. During fasting, your body releases significantly more growth hormone. Studies have measured increases of up to 5 times normal levels during extended fasts. This surge in growth hormone serves a very specific purpose. It protects your muscles from being broken down while simultaneously promoting fat burning. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. Our ancestors didn't have refrigerators or grocery stores. They went through periods without food regularly. If fasting caused rapid muscle loss, they wouldn't have been able to hunt or gather food when it became available again. They would have gotten weaker and weaker until they couldn't survive. Instead, the human body evolved a clever system. When food is scarce, it preserves muscle and burns fat. Growth hormone is a key part of this system. It shields your muscles while directing your body to use stored fat, especially visceral fat, for energy. Research has confirmed this. Studies comparing fasting to simple calorie restriction have found that people who fast tend to preserve more muscle mass while losing more fat mass, particularly from the abdominal area. Now let's talk about something that happens during longer fasts. It's called autophagy. Autophagy is a Greek word that means self-eating. That sounds alarming, but it's actually one of the most beneficial processes in your body. During autophagy, your cells clean house. They break down and recycle damaged proteins, malfunctioning components, and cellular debris. Think of it as your body's internal maintenance system. When it's activated, your cells become more efficient and healthier. Autophagy typically ramps up after about 24 to 48 hours of fasting, though some level of it begins earlier. In 2016, Japanese scientist Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his discoveries about how autophagy works. His research showed that this process is fundamental to cellular health and longevity. What does this have to do with visceral fat? Recent research from Osaka University published in 2022 revealed something fascinating. When you fast, a gene called Rubicon gets suppressed in your fat tissue. Normally, Rubicon acts like a brake on autophagy. When it's suppressed, autophagy accelerates. The researchers found that this leads to faster breakdown of fat-promoting proteins in fat cells, which accelerates fat loss. In other words, fasting doesn't just burn fat by creating a calorie deficit. It actually changes how your fat cells function at the genetic level, making them more likely to break down and release their contents. Now you might be thinking that you need to fast for 2 full days to get these benefits. That's not necessarily true. While autophagy increases significantly after 24 hours, some level of cellular cleanup begins much earlier. Even a 16 or 18-hour fast triggers beneficial changes in your cells. The longer fasts simply amplify these effects. The key takeaway here is that fasting does more than just reduce calories. It fundamentally changes your body's internal environment in ways that specifically target fat storage, particularly the visceral fat that poses the greatest health risks. So what does the research actually show about fasting and visceral fat specifically? One study compared intermittent fasting to traditional calorie restriction. Both groups consumed the same total number of calories per week. The only difference was the pattern of eating. The results were striking. The fasting group lost 33% of their visceral fat. The calorie restriction group lost only 14%. Same calories, very different outcomes for visceral fat. Another study used MRI scans to precisely measure fat in different parts of the body. Participants with prediabetes followed an intermittent fasting protocol for 12 weeks. The scans showed significant reductions in visceral fat, liver fat, and even fat around the pancreas. These are exactly the fat deposits most strongly linked to metabolic disease. A meta-analysis looking at over 800,000 participants found that higher levels of visceral fat are associated with a 55% increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The same analysis found that reducing visceral fat through interventions like fasting significantly lowered these risks. The evidence consistently points in the same direction. Fasting is particularly effective at targeting visceral fat, more so than many other approaches. But before you get too excited, we need to talk about something important. Fasting isn't right for everyone, and it's not without risks. If you feel dizzy during a fast and it goes away after resting and drinking water, that's usually normal. Your body is adjusting. But if you experience severe dizziness that doesn't resolve a racing heart that continues for more than 30 minutes, confusion, extreme weakness, or vomiting, these are signs to stop fasting immediately and consult a healthcare professional. Some people should not attempt fasting at all. This includes pregnant or breastfeeding women, people with a history of eating disorders, those with type 1 diabetes or insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes, anyone taking medications that require food, people who are underweight, and those with certain chronic health conditions. If you're unsure whether fasting is safe for you, please talk to your doctor before trying it. For those who can safely fast, there are several approaches to consider. The most common is time-restricted eating, often called the 16-8 method. You eat all your food within an 8-hour window and fast for the remaining 16 hours. For many people, this simply means skipping breakfast and not eating after dinner. Another approach is the 5-2 method. You eat normally 5 days per week, then significantly reduce calories on 2 non-consecutive days. Some people do longer fasts of 24 hours once or twice per week. There's no single best method. What matters most is finding an approach you can sustain consistently. The benefits of fasting come from regularly giving your body extended periods with low insulin. Whether that's 16 hours or 24 hours matters less than whether you can maintain it over time. Many people find it helpful to start gradually. If you normally eat from 7 in the morning until 10 at night, that's a 15-hour eating window. Try narrowing it to 12 hours first, then 10, then 8. Your body adapts over time. What feels difficult in the first week often becomes natural by the 4th or 5th week. Hydration matters during fasting. Water, plain tea, and black coffee are generally fine and don't break a fast. Staying well hydrated helps reduce hunger and prevents headaches that some people experience, especially in the beginning. One more thing worth mentioning. Research shows that combining fasting with exercise produces even better results for visceral fat than either approach alone. Studies found that adding moderate intensity cardio to a fasting protocol significantly enhanced visceral fat loss. The combination seems to amplify the fat-burning effects. This makes sense when you think about it. Exercise increases the demand for energy. When you exercise in a fasted state, your body has no choice but to pull that energy from stored fat. And as we've discussed, visceral fat is particularly responsive to being mobilized. So let's bring this all together. Visceral fat is the hidden fat surrounding your organs. It's more dangerous than the fat you can see because it actively releases harmful substances directly into your bloodstream and liver. It's strongly linked to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome. Traditional dieting, where you simply eat less but still eat frequently, often fails to target visceral fat effectively. The constant presence of insulin keeps fat locked in storage. Fasting works differently. By extending the time between meals, you allow insulin to drop low enough for your body to switch into fat-burning mode. Visceral fat, because of its direct connection to the liver, gets mobilized faster than other fat stores. Growth hormone rises to protect your muscles. And with longer fasts, autophagy kicks in to enhance fat cell breakdown at the cellular level. Research consistently shows that fasting reduces visceral fat more effectively than calorie restriction alone, even when total calories are the same. Fasting isn't about punishing your body. It's about giving your body the time it needs to do what it already knows how to do. Burn the fat it's been storing, especially the dangerous fat hidden deep inside. Listen to your body throughout the process. Start slowly if you're new to fasting. Stay hydrated. And if something feels wrong, stop and seek guidance. Have you tried fasting before? What was your experience? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if this video helped you understand visceral fat and why fasting works, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from this information. If you want to learn more about what happens inside your body during extended fasting hour by hour, make sure you're subscribed. We explore the science behind these processes in detail. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. You've been fasting for 12 hours, and you're wondering, has my body started burning fat? Yet is this actually working? If you search online, you'll find a common answer somewhere between 6 to 12 hours. But what does that number actually mean? And more importantly, what's really happening inside your body right now? Today we're going to walk through the real timeline of fat burning, step by step, hour by hour, from the moment you stop eating to the point where your body becomes an efficient fat-burning machine. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening inside you during every phase of a fast. Before we dive in a quick note, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, please consult your doctor before trying any fasting method. Also, fasting is not suitable for everyone. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, if you have a history of eating disorders, if you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, if you're underweight with a BMI below 18.55, if you have chronic kidney disease, or if you're taking medications that need to be taken with food, please speak with your healthcare provider before attempting any fasting protocol. Now let's start with the fundamentals. Your body uses two main fuel sources for energy: glucose and fat. Here's the important thing to understand. Your body is always burning both of these fuels. Always. Every minute of every day, you're burning some combination of glucose and fat. But the ratio changes. Sometimes you're burning mostly glucose. Sometimes you're burning mostly fat. The key question isn't whether you're burning fat. The real question is, when does fat become your dominant fuel source? When does your body shift from primarily burning glucose to primarily burning fat? To understand this, you need to know about two key players in your metabolism: insulin and glycogen. Let's start with insulin. Insulin is a hormone released by your pancreas whenever you eat. Its job is to help move glucose from your blood into your cells, where it can be used for energy. But insulin does something else too. When insulin levels are high, it signals your fat cells to stay locked. Keep the fat in storage. Don't release it. Think about it this way. When there's plenty of food coming in, your body sees no reason to tap into its fat reserves. Insulin essentially tells your fat cells, stay closed. We have enough fuel coming from food. But when insulin drops low, that signal changes. Now your fat cells get permission to open up and release stored fat into your bloodstream, where it can be burned for energy. Now let's talk about glycogen. Glycogen is simply the stored form of glucose. Your body keeps a reserve of glycogen primarily in two places: your liver and your muscles. Your liver holds about 100 grams of glycogen. That's roughly 400 calories worth of backup energy. Your muscles hold additional glycogen, but that's mainly reserved for muscle activity and doesn't directly contribute to blood sugar maintenance. Here's why this matters. Your liver's glycogen is like an emergency battery. When you stop eating and blood sugar starts to drop, your liver releases glycogen to keep blood sugar stable. Your body will use up this glycogen reserve before it fully commits to burning fat. So the sequence goes like this. First, you burn the glucose from your recent meal. Then, you burn through your liver's glycogen reserve. Only then does your body truly shift to burning fat as its primary fuel. With that foundation, let's walk through what happens hour by hour when you stop eating. During the first 0 to 4 hours after your last meal, your body is in what scientists call the fed state. This is the digestion and absorption phase. Food is being broken down in your stomach and intestines. Nutrients are being absorbed. Glucose is entering your bloodstream from the carbohydrates you ate. In response, your pancreas releases insulin to manage this incoming glucose. During this phase, your body is busy processing the food you just consumed. Insulin levels are elevated. Your fat cells are locked. Fat burning is actively suppressed. Your body has no need to tap into reserves when fresh fuel is arriving. Most people feel satisfied and energized during this phase. You're running on the energy from your recent meal. There's nothing wrong with this state, but understand that significant fat burning isn't happening here. This is why you shouldn't expect to burn much fat right after eating. Your body needs several hours just to finish processing the meal. As you move into hours 4 through 8, the transition begins. Digestion is now complete. The nutrients from your last meal have been absorbed. Blood glucose levels are returning to their normal baseline. And importantly, insulin is beginning to drop. Now your liver steps into action. As blood sugar starts to dip, your liver begins breaking down its glycogen stores to release glucose back into your bloodstream. This process is called glycogenolysis. It's your body's first line of defense against low blood sugar. Your liver is essentially a backup power supply. When incoming energy from food stops, the liver kicks in to keep things running smoothly. It maintains stable blood sugar so your brain and organs continue functioning normally. During this phase, you might start feeling the first hints of hunger. Your body is noticing that no new food has arrived in a while. But your energy typically remains stable because your liver is providing a steady stream of glucose from glycogen. Here's the key point to understand about this phase. Fat is still not your primary fuel source. Yes, you're burning some fat. You always are. But your body is primarily relying on glycogen reserves to meet its energy needs. Now we reach hours 8 through 12. This is where things start to get genuinely interesting. By now, insulin has dropped to low baseline levels. The signal keeping your fat cells locked is weakening. Glycogen stores in your liver are declining noticeably. And fat oxidation, the technical term for burning fat for energy, begins to increase significantly. Here's where the science gets exciting. Research from Maastricht University in the Netherlands, published in 2023, revealed something remarkable. They put healthy volunteers in a metabolic chamber and measured their fat burning hour by hour during a prolonged fast. What they found challenged the simple 12-hour rule many people believe. They discovered that fat oxidation became significantly higher compared to the fed state immediately after skipping the first meal. Not after some magic number of hours, immediately after the first skipped meal. This tells us something profound about how fat burning actually works. It doesn't suddenly switch on at hour 12 or any specific moment. It starts ramping up as soon as you stop eating and insulin begins to drop. It's a gradual increase, not a sudden flip of a switch. At the cellular level, here's what's happening. When insulin is low, your fat cells receive biochemical signals that it's safe to release stored fat. Large fat molecules, called triglycerides, are broken down into smaller molecules called free fatty acids. These free fatty acids are released into your bloodstream. They travel to your muscles, liver, and other organs where they're burned in the mitochondria to produce energy. During this phase, you might feel noticeably hungrier than before. That's normal. Your body is signaling that it would like some food. But interestingly, some people start feeling more alert and focused during this time. This isn't imagination, it's your biology beginning to shift. But remember, this is just the beginning of the fat burning acceleration. The real transformation is about to happen. Between hours 12 and 18, the process picks up significant speed. Glycogen in your liver is running low. Your body is ramping up production of growth hormone. Fat burning is accelerating substantially, and your liver is beginning to produce ketones. Let's talk about growth hormone because this addresses one of the biggest fears people have about fasting: will I lose muscle? The answer, backed by research, is reassuring. During fasting, growth hormone levels can increase dramatically. Studies show increases of 200 to 300% within the first 24 hours of fasting. Some research has documented increases of up to 500% or more during extended fasts. Why does this matter? Research from Aarhus University in Denmark provides the answer. Scientists studied what happens when you fast with normal growth hormone versus when growth hormone is artificially suppressed. When growth hormone was suppressed during fasting, muscle protein breakdown increased by 50%. But when growth hormone was present at normal fasting levels, muscles were protected. Growth hormone essentially acts as a guardian for your muscles during fasting. It tells your body burn fat for fuel, but leave the muscles alone. This makes perfect sense when you think about it from an evolutionary perspective. Our ancestors didn't have refrigerators, grocery stores, or food delivery apps. They often went days without eating. They had to hunt or forage when they were hungry. If the human body destroyed muscle tissue every time food was scarce, our ancestors would have become progressively weaker during famines. They wouldn't have had the strength to find more food. They wouldn't have survived. We wouldn't be here. So evolution designed an elegant solution. When food is scarce, the body protects muscle tissue and burns stored fat instead. Growth hormone is the key messenger that makes this happen. This system has been refined over millions of years. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. Now let's talk about ketones. When glucose from glycogen becomes scarce, your liver starts converting fat into an alternative fuel called ketones. There are three types of ketones: beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, and acetone. Here's what's remarkable about ketones. Your brain, which typically runs on glucose, can use ketones as an efficient fuel source. Ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier and power your neurons directly. This is why many people report feeling mentally sharp and clear during fasting. Once ketone production ramps up, your brain has access to a clean, steady fuel source. No more blood sugar spikes and crashes, just stable, sustained mental energy. There's also a fascinating discovery that reveals just how sophisticated your body's fasting response is. Research published in Nature Communications found that when glycogen in your liver runs low, your liver doesn't just passively wait. It actively sends neural signals through the vagus nerve to your brain. Your brain then signals your fat tissue to accelerate the release of stored fat. It's a three-way communication network between your liver, brain, and fat cells. A biological conversation that evolved over millions of years to help humans survive periods without food. During this 12 to 18-hour phase, something surprising often happens. Your hunger may actually decrease. It sounds counterintuitive. You'd expect to be hungrier the longer you go without food. But many people report that the intense hunger from earlier in the fast fades away. Why? Several reasons. Ketones have a natural appetite-suppressing effect. Your hormones are stabilizing into a new pattern, and your body has fully committed to burning fat, so it's no longer sending urgent feed me signals. Energy levels often feel more stable during this phase. Mental clarity improves. Some people describe a sense of calm focus they don't normally experience. By the way, I'm curious about your experience. What's your typical fasting window? Do you do 16 hours, 18 hours, 24 hours, or something else? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely interested in what works for this community. Now we arrive at hours 18 to 24. This is what researchers call the metabolic switch. Glycogen in your liver is nearly depleted. There's very little backup glucose left. Your body has officially and fully committed to burning fat as its primary fuel source. A landmark paper published in the journal Obesity in 2018 formally defined this metabolic switch concept. The researchers found that this switch typically occurs somewhere between 12 and 36 hours after your last meal. That's a wide range. Why such variation? Because the exact timing depends on several individual factors. First, how many carbohydrates were in your last meal? If you ate a high-carb meal, you stored more glycogen. More glycogen means it takes longer to deplete. If your last meal was lower in carbs, you start with less glycogen and switch to fat burning faster. Second, how physically active were you? Exercise and movement burn through glycogen. If you went for a walk or did some light activity during your fast, you depleted glycogen faster. Third, how insulin sensitive? Are you? People with insulin resistance may have chronically elevated insulin levels that take longer to drop. This can delay the metabolic switch. Fourth, have you fasted before? People who regularly practice intermittent fasting develop what's called metabolic flexibility. Their bodies become more efficient at switching between fuel sources. An experienced faster may flip the metabolic switch faster than someone fasting for the first time. By around 24 hours, liver glycogen is essentially depleted in most people. Your body has no other option but to rely heavily on fat for fuel. Fat oxidation reaches high levels. Ketone production is in full swing. Many people report feeling surprisingly good at this stage. Light, clear-headed, energetic. The intense hunger from earlier hours is often completely gone. Energy feels stable and sustained rather than the ups and downs of eating throughout the day. Now for an important safety note. Please listen carefully. If you experience any of the following symptoms during a fast, stop immediately and eat something. Dizziness that lasts more than 30 minutes. Rapid heartbeat or palpitations. Difficulty concentrating or mental confusion. Persistent nausea that won't go away. Feeling like you might faint. These are signals from your body that something is wrong. Don't try to push through them. Don't treat fasting like a competition. Your body is giving you important feedback. Listen to it. Break your fast, eat something nutritious, and try again another time with perhaps a shorter fasting window. Beyond 24 hours into the 36-hour range, and further fat burning continues to climb toward its peak. According to the Maastricht University study I mentioned earlier, fat oxidation peaked at around 51 hours of fasting, reaching 160 milligrams per minute. Ketone levels in the blood reach their highest concentrations during extended fasts. But here's something crucial to understand. Fat burning is not like a light switch that suddenly clicks on at a specific moment. It's more like a dimmer switch that gradually turns up over time. Every hour you fast, fat oxidation increases a little more. There's no single magic moment where everything suddenly changes. It's a continuous, gradual process. For most people, fasting between 16 and 24 hours provides significant and meaningful fat-burning benefits. You don't need to do extreme multi-day fasts to see results. Consistent shorter fasts can be very effective. Longer fasts of 36 to 72 hours or more can have additional benefits, but they also carry more risks. They require careful preparation, proper electrolyte management, and ideally supervision or guidance from a healthcare professional. They're not something to jump into casually. One more important point about individual variation. The timeline I've described is based on averages from research studies. Your personal timeline may differ based on your unique physiology. If your last meal was loaded with carbohydrates, pasta, bread, rice, sweets, you'll have more glycogen stored and it will take longer to deplete. If you ate a lower carb meal with protein, vegetables, and healthy fats, you'll transition faster. If you exercised before or during your fast, you burned through glycogen more quickly and accelerated the transition. If you sat at a desk all day, the process took longer. If you've been practicing intermittent fasting for months or years, your body has adapted. You've developed metabolic flexibility. Your transition to fat burning is probably faster and smoother than someone doing their first fast. If you have insulin resistance, the metabolic switch may take longer because your baseline insulin levels are higher to begin with. So don't compare yourself to others. Don't get frustrated if your experience differs from what you read online. Focus on your own body. Pay attention to how you feel. Track your energy, your hunger, your mental clarity. Over time, you'll learn your own patterns. Now that you understand the timeline of fat burning, let me share some practical methods to enhance and accelerate this process. First, reduce carbohydrates in your last meal before fasting. When you eat fewer carbs, you store less glycogen. Less glycogen means your body switches to fat burning faster. You don't need to eliminate carbs completely or go full ketogenic. Just reduce them. Prioritize protein, non-starchy vegetables, and healthy fats in your pre-fast meal. Save the pasta and bread for another time. Second, incorporate light movement during your fast. Walking, gentle yoga, stretching, or any low-intensity activity helps burn through glycogen faster. This pushes your body into fat-burning mode sooner. Even a 20 to 30-minute walk can make a meaningful difference. One important caution: avoid intense, strenuous exercise during extended fasts, especially if you're new to fasting. Your body needs time to adapt. Third, stay properly hydrated and maintain your electrolytes. This is crucial and often overlooked. When you fast, your body loses water and electrolytes more quickly than usual. Your kidneys excrete more sodium, and when sodium goes, potassium and magnesium follow. Electrolyte imbalance causes fatigue, headaches, muscle cramps, dizziness, and brain fog. Many of the unpleasant symptoms people blame on fasting are actually just dehydration and electrolyte deficiency. Make sure you're getting enough sodium, potassium, and magnesium. A pinch of sea salt in your water can help. Some people use sugar-free electrolyte supplements. Water, unsweetened tea, and black coffee are all fine during a fast and don't break your fast. Fourth, prioritize quality sleep. This might seem unrelated to fat burning, but it's deeply connected. Sleep deprivation increases cortisol, the stress hormone. High cortisol raises blood sugar and promotes insulin release. This interferes with the whole fat burning process. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep every night, but especially during fasting periods. Here's a bonus reason: growth hormone. The muscle protecting hormone we discussed earlier is released primarily during deep sleep. Poor sleep means less growth hormone, which means less muscle protection during your fast. Fifth, be patient and stay consistent. Your body needs time to adapt to fasting. The first few attempts might feel difficult. You might feel hungrier than expected. Your energy might fluctuate. This is normal. Your body is learning a new pattern. It's been conditioned by years of eating at certain times. It takes time to recalibrate. But here's the encouraging news: it gets easier. With consistent practice, your body becomes more efficient at switching to fat burning. This is called fat adaptation or metabolic flexibility. People who have been doing intermittent fasting for months report that it feels natural and easy. The early struggles fade. Consistency is the key. Stick with it. Be patient with yourself, and the process becomes progressively easier. So let's bring everything together. Fat burning during fasting is not an on-off switch. It's a gradual, continuous process that increases hour by hour. Between hours 8 and 12, fat oxidation begins rising significantly as insulin drops and glycogen depletes. Between hours 12 and 18, the process accelerates as growth hormone surges to protect muscle, and ketone production begins. Between hours 18 and 24, the metabolic switch completes and fat becomes your dominant fuel source. Beyond 24 hours, fat burning continues climbing toward its peak. Every hour of fasting contributes to this process. Even a 12-hour overnight fast increases fat oxidation compared to eating constantly throughout the day. Longer fasts amplify the effect, but you don't need to be extreme to see benefits. Remember, fasting is a tool, not a competition. It's not about who can go the longest or push the hardest. It's about understanding your body and using this knowledge wisely. Everyone's body is different. Start with a comfortable fasting window, maybe 12 or 14 hours at first. Gradually extend it as you adapt. Listen to your body's signals, respect its feedback. Now I want to hear from you. There's an interesting debate in the health community. Some experts insist you should never skip breakfast. They call it the most important meal of the day. Others point to research showing that skipping breakfast immediately increases fat oxidation. Where do you stand? Are you team breakfast or team skip it? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious about your perspective. And one more thing. Tell me in one word how this video changed your understanding of fasting. Just one single word. I'll read every single comment, and I'm curious to see what word you choose. If this video helped you understand intermittent fasting better, please share it with a friend or family member who's curious about this approach. Sometimes the right information at the right time can change everything for someone. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss upcoming videos about the science behind health, metabolism, and longevity. We dive deep into topics like this every week. Coming up next, we'll explore the most common mistakes people make when breaking a fast and how to avoid them. What you eat and how you eat after a fast might be just as important as the fast itself. You won't want to miss that one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. You've probably heard this before. If you want to burn fat effectively, you should exercise on an empty stomach. Ideally, early in the morning, right after waking up from an overnight fast. Sounds logical, right? But here's something most people don't realize. Let's say you've been fasting for 16 hours. If you work out at 7 in the morning, your body is in a completely different state compared to working out at 5 in the afternoon, even though you've fasted the same amount of time. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that your body has its own internal rhythm, and this rhythm directly affects your muscle strength, your ability to burn fat, and your energy levels throughout the day. So the question is, when is truly the best time to exercise while fasting? In this video, I'm going to walk you through the specific time windows based on both how long you've been fasting and your body's natural biological clock. By the end, you'll know exactly which time frame works best for your goal, whether that's burning fat, building muscle, or improving your endurance. And more importantly, you'll avoid some common mistakes that many people make without even knowing it. One quick thing worth mentioning. Everything I'm sharing today is for educational purposes. If you have any underlying health conditions or you're new to fasting, It's always a good idea to check with a healthcare professional before making significant changes to your routine. Now let's start with the basics. When you stop eating, your body goes through different stages. In the first 6 hours or so, you're not really in a fasted state yet. Your body is still digesting your last meal. From around hour 6 to hour 12, things start to shift. Your body begins transitioning from using glucose to tapping into your fat stores for energy. This is when the metabolic switch starts happening. The sweet spot for most people is somewhere between hour 12 and hour 18. During this window, your body is efficiently burning fat. Your insulin levels are low and your energy tends to feel more stable. Beyond hour 18, you're moving into deeper fasting territory. There are benefits here, but you also need to be more careful, especially with high-intensity workouts. But here's the thing. This fasting timeline is only half the story. The other half has to do with something called your circadian rhythm. Think of your circadian rhythm as an internal clock that runs inside your body. It controls when you feel sleepy, when you feel alert, and when different systems in your body are at their peak performance. This clock runs on a roughly 24-hour cycle, and it affects almost everything, including your hormones, your body temperature, and yes, your muscle strength. Here's a simple way to understand it. You know how you naturally feel sleepy at night, even if you're not particularly tired? That's your circadian rhythm at work. And the same internal clock also influences when your muscles are strongest, when your coordination is sharpest, and when your body is most primed for physical performance. One of the most important things controlled by this rhythm is your body temperature. Throughout the day, your core temperature fluctuates by about half a degree Celsius. It's lowest in the early morning around 4 to 6 a.m., and it gradually rises, reaching its peak in the late afternoon or early evening. This might sound like a small difference, but it has a real impact on how your muscles perform. Your hormones also follow this daily rhythm. Cortisol, the hormone that helps you feel alert and ready to take on the day, peaks in the morning and gradually declines throughout the day. Testosterone in men follows a similar pattern, highest upon waking and tapering off as the day goes on. But here's where it gets complicated. Just because certain hormones are higher in the morning doesn't automatically mean morning is the best time to train. Because other factors like body temperature and muscle readiness are working in the opposite direction. It's a balance, and understanding this balance is the key to optimizing your workout timing. Let's talk about the morning window first, roughly between 6 and 10 a.m. There are some genuine advantages to exercising in the morning. Your cortisol levels are at their highest during this time. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, but it also plays an important role in helping you feel alert and energized. It also supports fat burning, which is why some people feel that morning fasted cardio is effective for fat loss. For men, testosterone levels also tend to be higher in the morning compared to the evening. On the surface, this sounds great for building muscle, but here's what most people don't consider. Your body temperature is at its lowest point in the morning. Your muscles are literally cooler, which means they're stiffer and less flexible. This is why you might notice that your body feels a bit tight or sluggish when you first wake up. It takes longer to warm up, and your risk of injury is slightly higher if you jump straight into intense exercise without proper preparation. Research has shown that body temperature in the morning is about 0.6 degrees Celsius lower than in the afternoon, and resting heart rate is about 7 beats per minute slower. This matters because your muscle strength hasn't reached its peak yet. If you're going to train in the morning, especially strength training, you need to spend more time warming up. Instead of a quick 5-minute warm-up, aim for 10 to 15 minutes to get your muscles ready. Now let's look at the afternoon window between about 2 and 6 p.m. This is where things get really interesting. For over 20 years, scientists have been studying how muscle strength changes throughout the day. They've measured hundreds of people testing their strength at different times, using everything from grip strength tests to leg extension exercises. And here's what they found. Every single study, not just one or two, but over 20 different studies spanning more than 2 decades, came to the same conclusion. Muscle strength peaks in the late afternoon, somewhere between 4 and 8 p.m. The difference compared to the morning about 5 to 6%. Now that might not sound like much, but if you're serious about strength training, that 5 to 6% can be the difference between completing that last rep or failing it. It can be the difference between lifting a heavier weight or hitting a plateau. Why does this happen? A big part of it comes down to body temperature. One study found that for every 1 degree Celsius increase in muscle temperature, performance improves by 2 to 5%. In the afternoon, your body temperature is higher, your muscles are more supple, and your neuromuscular coordination is sharper. Think about what this means practically. In the morning, your muscles are cold, stiff, and operating below their potential. By the afternoon, they've warmed up naturally through your daily activities. Your nervous system is fully awake, and everything is functioning at a higher level. This is also the time when your reaction time is fastest, your flexibility is best, and interestingly, the perception of effort is lowest. That same workout that feels hard in the morning can feel noticeably easier in the afternoon, simply because your body is operating at a higher level. Athletes and coaches have known this intuitively for years. Most sports records are broken in the late afternoon or early evening, not in the morning. And now we have the science to explain why. The evening window between about 6 and 9 p.m. shares many of these benefits. Your flexibility is still at its peak, and many people find that they can train harder with less perceived effort. However, there's one important consideration. If you exercise too close to bedtime, it can interfere with your sleep. The general recommendation is to finish your workout at least 2 to 3 hours before you plan to go to bed. This gives your body time to wind down. So now we come to the key insight that most people miss. When you're trying to figure out the best time to work out while fasting, you need to consider both factors together: how long you've been fasting and what time of day it is. Think about it this way. If you work out at 7 a.m. after 12 hours of fasting, your body is prioritizing fat burning because of the fasted state, but your muscles aren't at their strongest because of your circadian rhythm. On the other hand, if you work out at 5 p.m. after 12 hours of fasting, your body is still burning fat efficiently, and your muscles are now at their peak performance. Same fasting duration, very different outcomes depending on the time of day. This is why there's no single best time that works for everyone. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. Let me break this down by goal. If your primary goal is fat loss, the research suggests that the combination of fasted exercise does increase fat oxidation. A meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Nutrition looked at 27 different studies with nearly 300 participants. The conclusion was clear. Cardio performed in a fasted state burns more fat than cardio performed after eating. For fat loss, a good approach is to work out in the morning, somewhere between 6 and 9 a.m., after you've been fasting for 14 to 18 hours. Your cortisol levels are naturally elevated, which supports fat mobilization. The type of exercise that works best here is moderate intensity cardio, like brisk walking, cycling, or light jogging. Aim for about 30 to 45 minutes. Now, if your goal is building muscle or increasing strength, the equation changes. There's a fascinating study I want to tell you about. Researchers followed 42 men through a 24-week strength training program. Half of them trained in the morning between 6:30 and 10 a.m. The other half trained in the evening between 4:30 and 8 p.m. For the first 12 weeks, both groups gained muscle at roughly the same rate. No significant difference. But here's where it gets interesting. From week 13 onward, the evening training group started pulling ahead. By the end of the study, they had gained noticeably more muscle mass. What does this tell us? It suggests that while short-term results might be similar, regardless of when you train, the long-term adaptations favor evening training for muscle growth. Your body seems to respond better to strength training when it's performed during its natural peak performance window. This doesn't mean you can't build muscle training in the morning. Plenty of people do. But if you have the flexibility to choose your training time, and muscle building is your primary goal, the afternoon or evening might give you a slight edge over time. The optimal window appears to be somewhere between 2 and 6 p.m. after you've been fasting for 12 to 16 hours. One important note: if muscle building is your goal, make sure you eat within 2 to 3 hours after your workout. This gives your muscles the protein they need for recovery and growth. For endurance and overall performance, the afternoon window between 3 and 5 p.m. tends to work well with a fasting duration of 12 to 14 hours. Your body still has enough stored energy to perform, and your physical capabilities are at or near their peak. And if you're doing lighter exercise focused on mental clarity, things like yoga stretching or easy walking, the morning window between 7 and 9 a.m. works beautifully, especially if you've been fasting for 16 to 20 hours. Many people report feeling more focused and mentally sharp during this state, likely because the brain is efficiently using ketones for fuel. Let me give you a quick comparison between morning and evening fasted workouts. Morning workouts after an overnight fast of 12 to 16 hours have these advantages. They're convenient and easy to schedule before your day gets busy. Cortisol levels support fat burning, and testosterone is elevated. The drawbacks are that your body temperature is lower, so you need a longer warm-up, and your muscle strength hasn't peaked yet. Morning fasted workouts are best for fat loss, moderate cardio, and light exercise like yoga. Evening fasted workouts, where you might skip lunch and train around 5 to 7 p.m., have different advantages. Your body temperature is at its peak, your muscle strength is highest, and your flexibility is better. Research also suggests you may gain more muscle over time. The drawbacks are that it's harder to maintain a fast throughout the day, and training too late can affect your sleep. Evening fasted workouts are best for strength training, high-intensity intervals, and performance goals. The key takeaway is that there's no one-size-fits-all answer. The best time depends on your specific goal and your personal schedule. Before we wrap up, let me share 5 common timing mistakes that people make. Mistake number 1 is working out immediately after eating in that 0 to 4 hour window, thinking you'll have more energy. The reality is that your body is still digesting food. Blood flow is prioritized for your stomach and intestines, not your muscles. And you're not actually in a fasted state, so you're missing out on the fat-burning benefits. Mistake number 2 is doing high-intensity interval training or heavy strength work after 20-plus hours of fasting, especially if you're not used to it. By this point, your glycogen stores are very low. The risk of low blood sugar increases, which can cause dizziness, shaking, and blurred vision. If you experience any of these symptoms, stop immediately. Mistake number 3 is always training at the same time without considering your goal. If you want to lose fat, morning fasted cardio makes sense, But if you want to build muscle, you might get better results by shifting to the afternoon. Many people do the same routine year after year without ever questioning the timing. Mistake number 4 is doing heavy strength training early in the morning without an adequate warm-up. Remember, your body temperature is lower, your muscles are stiffer, and your strength is about 5 to 6% below its daily peak. If you must train heavy in the morning, researchers have found that extending your warm-up by an additional 15 to 20 minutes can help compensate for this difference. Mistake number 5 is changing your training schedule abruptly without giving your body time to adapt. If you've always trained in the morning and suddenly switched to evening workouts, it takes about 1 to 2 weeks for your body to adjust. Interestingly, research shows that consistently training at a specific time can actually shift your performance peak to match that time. So be patient during the transition. Here's what I want you to take away from this. There is no perfect time that works for everyone. What matters is understanding what state your body is in at different times and aligning your training with your goals. Fasting and exercise are both tools. And like any tool, their effectiveness depends on how you use them. The combination of the right fasting window and the right time of day can amplify your results. But getting it wrong means you might be working harder than necessary without seeing the benefits you're hoping for. The good news is that now you have the knowledge to make informed decisions. You understand that your body isn't the same at 7 a.m. as it is at 5 p.m. You know that fasting creates certain metabolic conditions that can enhance fat burning, and you know how to match these factors to your specific goals. Most importantly, listen to your body. These guidelines are based on research and averages, but you are an individual. Pay attention to how you feel, track your progress, and adjust accordingly. Some people thrive with early morning workouts despite what the research says about afternoon strength peaks. Others feel sluggish in the morning no matter how long they warm up. Your personal experience matters. I'm curious about your experience. Drop a comment below and let me know. Are you a morning exerciser or do you prefer training in the evening? And what's your main goal right now? Fat loss, muscle building, or improving your overall fitness? I'd love to hear from you. Some people swear by morning fasted cardio for fat loss. Others point to the research showing that strength peaks in the afternoon, which means you can lift heavier and potentially burn more calories. What do you think? If this video gave you some clarity on when to train, hit that subscribe button. I put out new content regularly on fasting fitness and how to get the most out of both. Until then, train smart, and I'll catch you in the next video. You have been eating less. You have been exercising more. The weight is coming off. Your face looks thinner. Your arms are getting smaller. Your clothes fit better in some places. But then you look down at your belly and it looks almost exactly the same as before. Sound familiar? Belly fat seems to play by completely different rules. No matter what you do, no matter how disciplined you are, it refuses to budge. And if you have ever wondered why this happens, you are definitely not alone. Millions of people around the world experience this exact frustration every single day. But here is the thing most people do not realize. Your belly fat is not stubborn because you lack willpower or discipline. It is stubborn because your body was literally designed that way. There are real, measurable biological reasons why fat around your midsection behaves so differently from fat everywhere else on your body. Today, we are going to explore the science behind belly fat. We will look at exactly why it forms in the first place, why it is so incredibly hard to lose, and how fasting might be one of the most effective tools available to finally get rid of it. Before we continue, I want to be clear that This is educational content, not medical advice. If you are considering any type of fasting regimen, please consult with your healthcare provider first. Everyone's body is different, and what works for one person may not be appropriate for another. Now let us start with understanding what belly fat actually is. When you pinch the soft layer of fat around your stomach, that is what we call subcutaneous belly fat. The word subcutaneous simply means under the skin. This fat sits in the layer between your skin and your abdominal muscles. It is the fat you can grab with your hand. This is different from visceral fat, which is another type of fat that lies much deeper inside your abdomen. Visceral fat surrounds and cushions your internal organs like your liver, intestines, stomach, and kidneys. You cannot pinch visceral fat because it is too deep inside your body. Both types of fat respond to fasting, but they respond in different ways. We have already covered visceral fat in detail in a previous video on this channel. Today, we are focusing specifically on that visible belly fat that you can see and feel, the kind that hangs over your waistband, the kind that shows through your shirt, the kind that seems to refuse to disappear no matter what you try. So the first question we need to answer is this: why does fat accumulate around your belly in the first place? Every single time you eat, especially when you eat foods containing sugar or starch, your body releases a hormone called insulin. Insulin is produced by your pancreas, and it serves as a signal telling your body what to do with the energy from your food. When insulin levels are high, your body receives a clear message to go into storage mode. It takes the excess energy from whatever you just ate and stores it as fat for later use. Here is the critical part that most people do not know. Your abdominal area has significantly more insulin receptors than many other parts of your body. Think of receptors as receiving stations that pick up hormonal signals. Because your belly has more of these receiving stations for insulin, it is particularly responsive to insulin's storage message. When insulin tells your body to store fat, your belly is often the first place to receive that signal and the most eager to act on it. But there is another factor that makes belly fat accumulation even worse. When you are under stress, whether it is work pressure, relationship problems, financial worries, or just the chaos of modern life, your body releases a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and it has many functions. One of those functions is promoting fat storage, and cortisol seems to have a particular preference for storing fat around your midsection. This is why people who experience chronic ongoing stress often notice their belly growing larger, even when their eating habits have not changed significantly. The stress itself is contributing to fat accumulation through this cortisol pathway. So we have insulin pushing fat into storage, and we have cortisol making sure that a significant portion of that fat ends up specifically around your belly. But there is one more factor that makes all of this even more challenging as time goes on, and that factor is age. Starting around age 30, your body begins a gradual process of losing muscle mass. This happens to everyone unless they actively work against it through resistance exercise. If you are not regularly challenging your muscles, you can lose somewhere between 1 and 2% of your total muscle mass every single year. Why does this matter for belly fat? Because muscle tissue is metabolically active. Your muscles burn calories around the clock even when you are sitting still or sleeping. Less muscle mass means a slower metabolism, which means your body burns fewer total calories each day. Those unburned calories have to go somewhere, and they often end up stored as fat. At the same time that you are losing muscle, your hormones are also shifting. In men, testosterone levels begin a gradual decline starting in the 30s. In women, estrogen levels go through significant changes, especially during and after menopause. These hormonal shifts fundamentally affect where your body prefers to store fat. Instead of distributing fat relatively evenly across your body, it starts concentrating more and more around your abdomen. This is not something you are doing wrong. This is simply how human biology works. But understanding these mechanisms helps you see clearly why belly fat tends to become more common and more stubborn as we move through life. Now we arrive at the central question. Why is belly fat so incredibly, frustratingly difficult to lose? Every fat cell in your body has two distinct types of receptors sitting on its surface. You can think of receptors as switches that control what the fat cell does. The first type is called beta receptors. When beta receptors get activated by certain hormones, they send a signal telling the fat cell to release its stored fat into the bloodstream so it can be burned for energy. The second type is called alpha 2 receptors. These work in the opposite direction. When alpha 2 receptors get activated, they send a signal telling the fat cell to hold tight, to keep its stored fat locked away, and to resist any attempts to release it. Here is the critical difference. The fat cells in your abdominal area have a much higher proportion of alpha 2 receptors compared to fat cells in your arms, your face, your chest, or other areas. Research has shown that belly fat can have anywhere from 4 to 9 times more alpha 2 receptors than fat in other regions. What does this mean when you are actually trying to lose weight? When you exercise or reduce your calorie intake, your body releases hormones like adrenaline and noradrenaline that are designed to mobilize fat from storage. These hormones travel through your bloodstream and reach fat cells throughout your entire body. When they reach areas with lots of beta receptors, like your face or your arms, the fat cells respond quickly and enthusiastically, releasing their stored fat. But when these same hormones reach your belly fat, they encounter a much stronger resistance signal from all those alpha 2 receptors. The stop signal in your belly is simply louder and stronger than the go signal. There is yet another challenge. Blood flow to belly fat tends to be lower than blood flow to fat deposits in other areas. This means the fat-burning hormones have a harder time even physically reaching your belly fat cells in sufficient quantities. Why would your body be designed this way? It comes down to survival. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived where food availability was unpredictable. There would be periods of plenty followed by periods of severe scarcity. The humans who survived were those whose bodies were most efficient at storing and protecting energy reserves. Belly fat served as the ultimate emergency reserve. It was the last line of defense that could keep a person alive during an extended famine. Our ancestors' bodies evolved sophisticated mechanisms to protect this crucial reserve. Those with the best fat protection mechanisms survived and passed on their genes. The problem is that we inherited this ancient survival programming, but we now live in a completely different world. Food is abundant and available around the clock. There are no famines to survive, but our bodies do not know that. They are still running the same protective software. So how does fasting help us overcome these biological barriers? When you fast, a remarkable cascade of hormonal changes begins unfolding in your body. These changes are what make fasting fundamentally different from simply eating fewer calories. Let me walk you through exactly what happens at different stages. During the first 12 hours after your last meal, your body is primarily still running on glucose from the food you ate. Insulin levels begin dropping gradually, but nothing dramatic is happening yet with your fat stores. Between 12 and 18 hours of fasting, things start to genuinely shift. Your glucose reserves are running low, and your body transitions more heavily toward burning fat for energy. Insulin levels drop significantly. Simultaneously, your body starts ramping up production of growth hormone. This hormone promotes the breakdown of fat while protecting your muscle tissue from being used for energy. This is why proper fasting does not cause the muscle loss that many people fear. Between 18 and 24 hours of fasting, the hormonal changes become even more pronounced. Insulin has dropped to very low levels, far lower than you would ever achieve just by eating less food. Growth hormone can surge to as much as 5 times its normal level. Your body also increases its release of norepinephrine, a hormone that directly activates fat cells and tells them to release their stored contents. Here is why this matters specifically for your stubborn belly fat. Remember those alpha 2 receptors that act like brakes on fat release? When insulin remains low for an extended continuous period, and when growth hormone and norepinephrine levels are simultaneously elevated, this hormonal combination begins to override the alpha 2 blockade. The stop signal gradually weakens, and belly fat that has been stubbornly resistant finally begins to let go. Beyond 24 hours of fasting, these beneficial effects continue building. A process called autophagy becomes increasingly active. Autophagy is your body's cellular housekeeping system, where damaged components get broken down and recycled. Your body is now operating fully in fat-burning mode, drawing energy from fat stores throughout your body, including those stubborn deposits around your midsection. A study published in 2023 directly compared intermittent fasting against traditional calorie restriction. Both groups consumed exactly the same total number of calories. The only difference was the eating pattern. The results were striking. The intermittent fasting group lost 33% of their visceral fat, while the calorie restriction group lost only 14%. Same total calories, dramatically different outcomes. This suggests that fasting creates specific hormonal conditions that simple calorie cutting cannot replicate. I want to be direct about something important. Extended fasting beyond 24 hours is not appropriate for everyone. If you experience severe dizziness that does not pass quickly, if your heart starts pounding or racing, if you feel confused or have difficulty thinking, these are signs to stop your fast immediately and consult with a healthcare professional. Fasting should feel challenging, but it should not feel dangerous. In 2021, researchers at the University of Sydney conducted one of the most detailed studies on what happens to fat tissue during fasting. They analyzed over 8,500 different proteins in fat tissue. What they discovered surprised the scientific community. Belly fat does not simply sit there, passively resisting weight loss. It actively adapts and fights back. When fat tissue around the abdomen senses that the body is fasting, it shifts into what the researchers called preservation mode. In this mode, belly fat actually increases its capacity to store energy while decreasing its willingness to release stored fat. This explains why many people notice their belly fat shrinking more slowly than fat in other areas during early stages of fasting. But here is the encouraging news. This preservation mode has limits. It cannot hold out indefinitely. The researchers noted that with sufficient fasting duration and consistent practice over time, the body eventually overcomes this resistance. The belly fat cannot maintain its defense forever. Now, let us discuss something equally important. What you eat during your eating windows matters enormously. Fasting creates the hormonal conditions for fat loss, but your food choices determine whether you actually take full advantage of those conditions. Protein needs to be your absolute top priority. Protein helps preserve your muscle mass even as you are losing weight. It creates a strong sensation of fullness that makes fasting periods much easier to handle. A reasonable target is approximately 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight each day. If you weigh 70 kilograms, that translates to roughly 110 to 140 grams of protein daily. Good protein sources include chicken breast, fish eggs, tofu, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and legumes like beans, lentils, and chickpeas. Beyond protein, focus on choosing minimally processed whole foods. Foods in their natural state typically have lower calorie density. This means you can eat a satisfying volume while consuming fewer total calories. Vegetables, fruits, and whole grains like brown rice, quinoa, and oats are excellent choices. If you are following a 16 to 8 fasting schedule, where you fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window, think carefully about structuring your meals. Your first meal should lead with protein and include generous portions of vegetables. Your second meal can be more balanced, incorporating protein along with complex carbohydrates from whole grain sources and moderate amounts of healthy fats. If you are practicing OMAD, meaning one meal a day, that single daily meal carries even more importance. Protein remains the top priority. Build your plate around a generous protein source first. Add a large serving of vegetables for vitamins, minerals, and fiber. Round out the meal with some complex carbohydrates and healthy fats. Do not be afraid to eat until you feel satisfied. The key is choosing high-quality, nutrient-dense foods. What should you avoid? Highly processed foods, beverages containing added sugars and refined starches like white bread, white pasta, and pastries. These foods cause rapid spikes in your insulin levels. And as we have discussed, elevated insulin directly counteracts the fat-burning state you are working to achieve through fasting. Here is what I want you to take away from everything we have covered today. Your belly fat is not stubborn because of something you are doing wrong. It is stubborn because your body was specifically engineered through evolution to protect it. This is basic human biology, not a personal failing. Understanding this is the essential first step toward making lasting change. Fasting is not a magical overnight solution, but fasting creates a specific set of hormonal conditions that simple calorie restriction cannot achieve. When your insulin levels remain low for extended periods, when your growth hormone surges upward, when your metabolic system shifts into fat-burning mode, even the most heavily defended fat stores eventually have to yield. Combine strategic fasting with proper nutrition focused on protein and whole foods. Be patient with the process. Be consistent in your practice. Remember that your belly fat accumulated over months or years. It will not vanish in a week or two. But with the right approach, armed with understanding of what is happening inside your body, you can overcome those biological barriers. Your body is remarkably adaptable. The same mechanisms that make belly fat challenging to lose also mean your body can adjust and respond to new patterns when you give it the right signals consistently over time. Have you tried intermittent fasting before? What has your experience been with belly fat? I want to hear your stories, so share them in the comments below. And if this video helped you understand your body a little better, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We will see you in the next one. Imagine trying to focus on your work, but all you can think about is food. Your stomach growls. Your mind keeps drifting to the fridge. You check the clock and realize you still have 4 hours left in your fasting window. Sound familiar? If you've ever tried intermittent fasting, you know this feeling. The hunger can seem overwhelming, especially in the beginning. Many people give up, not because fasting doesn't work, but because they don't know how to handle the hunger that comes with it. But here's something most people don't realize. The way hunger actually works is very different from what you might expect. And once you understand it, everything changes. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what's happening in your body when you feel hungry during a fast. More importantly, we'll cover what you can actually do about it. This is educational content, not medical advice, so always check with your healthcare provider before starting any fasting routine. Let's start with the basics. When you feel hungry, there's a hormone responsible for that sensation. It's called ghrelin. Ghrelin is produced mainly in your stomach, and its job is to send a signal to your brain that says it's time to eat. When ghrelin levels rise, you feel hungry. When they fall, that hunger fades. Simple enough, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Ghrelin isn't released based on whether your body actually needs food. It's released based on when your body expects food. Let me explain what that means. If you normally eat breakfast at 8 in the morning, your stomach starts releasing ghrelin around 8 in the morning. If you usually have lunch at noon, ghrelin spikes again around noon. Your body has learned your eating schedule, and it prepares for meals before they even happen. This is why that 12 o'clock hunger feels so intense when you're fasting. It's not because you desperately need food at that exact moment. It's because your body has been trained to expect food at that time. The hunger you feel is partly a learned response, not necessarily a sign that you're running out of energy. Understanding this is the first step to handling hunger better. That gnawing feeling at your usual mealtime isn't an emergency. It's your body following an old schedule that you're now changing. Now here's where the science gets even more surprising. Researchers wanted to know what happens to ghrelin when people fast for extended periods. They measured ghrelin levels every 20 minutes in subjects who fasted for 33 hours straight. What they expected to find was that ghrelin would keep rising higher and higher the longer people went without food. That's not what happened. Instead, they discovered that ghrelin follows a wave pattern. It rises at the times when subjects normally ate peaks for a while, and then falls back down even though no food was consumed. The hunger didn't keep building indefinitely. It came in waves. This is crucial information for anyone practicing intermittent fasting. When you feel that intense hunger hit, it's not going to keep getting worse forever. That wave of hunger typically lasts about 15 to 20 minutes. If you can ride it out, if you can distract yourself or just wait, that wave will pass. And you'll often find yourself feeling much better on the other side. Think about times when you got busy and accidentally skipped lunch. Maybe you were deep in a project or stuck in back-to-back meetings. Around 1 o'clock you were starving, but by 3 o'clock you weren't that hungry anymore. You didn't eat anything yet. The hunger faded on its own. That's the wave pattern in action. Your body doesn't stay in peak hunger mode constantly. It cycles through it. There's another fascinating piece to this puzzle. Scientists at Harvard conducted studies on the body's internal clock and hunger. They found that hunger follows a natural daily rhythm that's built into our biology. And here's the surprising part. Hunger is actually lowest in the morning around 8 or 9 a.m., even though that's typically after your longest period without food, the overnight fast. You'd think that after 10 or 12 hours of not eating while you sleep, you'd wake up starving. But for most people, that's not the case. Morning hunger tends to be mild compared to evening hunger. Why would our bodies be designed this way? The answer lies in evolution. Think about what life was like for our ancestors tens of thousands of years ago. There were no refrigerators, no grocery stores, no delivery apps. Food wasn't guaranteed. It had to be found, hunted, gathered, or caught. Now imagine waking up in that world. You haven't eaten since yesterday. If hunger immediately made you weak, sluggish, and unable to think clearly, you'd be in serious trouble. You'd be too impaired to do the one thing you needed to do, which was find your next meal. So our bodies evolved a brilliant solution. Instead of making us weaker when food wasn't available, our biology actually sharpens us. Hunger is suppressed in the morning hours. Mental clarity increases. Energy becomes more stable. Our ancestors woke up ready to hunt, not disabled by hunger pangs. This is why extended fasting doesn't make you progressively weaker with each passing hour. Your body has backup systems that kick in when food isn't coming. It switches from burning glucose to burning stored fat. It produces ketones, an alternative fuel source that your brain can use efficiently. It releases hormones that preserve muscle and maintain alertness. These aren't flaws in your biology, they're features. Survival mechanisms refined over millions of years of human evolution. When you fast, you're activating ancient programming that helped your ancestors survive periods of scarcity. Hunger then builds throughout the day, peaking in the evening, which would have encouraged our ancestors to eat well before the fasting period of sleep. This pattern is still running inside you right now. It's why many people find morning fasting relatively easy, but struggle more as the day goes on. You're not weak for feeling hungrier at night. You're human. Your biology is working exactly as it was designed to work. Here's some good news for anyone just starting out with intermittent fasting. The first day or two is usually the hardest. This isn't a sign that you're failing or that fasting isn't for you. It's simply your body adjusting to a new eating schedule. Remember, your stomach has been releasing ghrelin at your old meal times, possibly for years or even decades. If you've eaten breakfast at 7 a.m. every day for 20 years, that's over 7,000 times. Your body has learned to expect food at that hour. When you suddenly change the pattern, your body needs time to catch up. Those first 24 to 48 hours often bring the most intense hunger because your system is still operating on the old schedule. But here's what happens next. As you stick with your new eating window, your body starts to adapt. The ghrelin release pattern begins to shift. Your stomach learns that food isn't coming at 7 a.m. anymore, and it stops sounding the alarm at that time. Many people report that after just a few days of consistent intermittent fasting, the hunger becomes much more manageable. Some even say it nearly disappears during their fasting window. They describe feeling lighter, more focused, and surprisingly not hungry at all during times when they used to feel starving. Your stomach doesn't physically shrink, despite what some people claim. What changes is your hormonal response. Your body learns the new schedule and adjusts when it sends hunger signals. The cells in your stomach that produce ghrelin have their own internal clocks, and these clocks can be reset. This adaptation is real and it's backed by research. So if you're in your first week and struggling, know that it gets easier, much easier. You just have to give your biology time to catch up with your intentions. Most people find that by week 2, fasting feels almost natural. Now let's talk about something that trips up a lot of people. Not all hunger is the same. Sometimes when you think you're hungry, you're actually thirsty. The signals for hunger and thirst in your brain can get crossed, especially if you're not used to paying close attention to your body's cues. Many people find that drinking a glass of water when hunger strikes reduces or eliminates the sensation entirely. It wasn't food their body wanted. It was hydration. Then there's emotional hunger. This is when you want to eat not because your body needs fuel, but because you're bored, stressed, anxious, or just looking for comfort. Food triggers the release of dopamine in your brain, the same chemical associated with pleasure and reward. Sometimes you're not hungry for calories. You're hungry for that dopamine hit, that feeling of satisfaction. Being able to tell the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger is a game changer for fasting. Physical hunger usually comes on gradually and is accompanied by physical sensations like stomach growling, slight fatigue, or difficulty concentrating. Emotional hunger tends to come on suddenly, often triggered by a mood or situation, and it usually craves specific foods rather than just food in general. Before you break your fast, ask yourself which type of hunger you're experiencing. If it's emotional, there are other ways to get that dopamine boost that don't involve eating. Now I'm curious about your experience. When do you feel hungriest during a fast? Is it the first few hours, somewhere in the middle, or right before your eating window opens? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to see if your experience matches what the science tells us. Alright, so you understand why hunger works the way it does. But understanding alone doesn't make the hunger disappear when it hits. Let's talk about what you can actually do in those moments. The first and simplest strategy is to drink water. When a wave of hunger comes, drink a full glass of water and wait 10 to 15 minutes. You might be surprised how often this helps. Adding a small pinch of salt to your water can make it even more effective. Here's why. When you fast, your body excretes more sodium than usual. Low sodium levels can actually increase ghrelin production, making you feel hungrier. By maintaining your electrolytes, you're not just staying hydrated, you're directly helping to manage your hunger hormones. The second strategy is to keep yourself busy with physical activity. This doesn't mean you need to hit the gym hard. Simple activities work great. Go for a 10 or 15-minute walk around your neighborhood. Clean your house or organize a messy drawer. Do some gardening or yard work. Wash your car. Fold laundry. The activity itself doesn't matter much. What matters is that you're moving and your mind is occupied. Light physical activity serves two purposes. First, it distracts your mind from the hunger. When you're focused on a task, your brain has less bandwidth to obsess over food. Second, and this is the interesting part, research shows physical activity can actually reduce ghrelin levels temporarily. One study found that exercising at the start of a fast reduced ghrelin by about 17% compared to fasting without exercise. Movement isn't just a distraction. It's actively helping your biology cope with the fasting state. Many people discover that a simple walk is their secret weapon for getting through tough hunger moments. There's something about changing your environment and getting your body moving that seems to reset your mental state. The third strategy is mental distraction. Your brain can only focus on so many things at once. If you fill it with engaging content, there's less room for hunger to dominate your thoughts. Put on a podcast or audiobook that genuinely interests you. Watch educational videos, maybe even videos about fasting, to remind yourself why you're doing this and reinforce your motivation. Call a friend or family member and have a real conversation. Dive into work that requires concentration. Many people notice that their busiest days are also their easiest fasting days. When your calendar is packed with meetings or you're deep into a challenging project, hours can fly by without a single thought about food. Then, on weekends, when you have free time and nothing urgent to do, suddenly fasting feels impossible. This isn't coincidence. It's how your brain works. Boredom is one of hunger's best friends. When your mind is idle, it looks for stimulation, and food is one of the easiest sources of stimulation available. By keeping yourself mentally engaged, you're not just passing time. You're strategically redirecting your brain's attention away from hunger. The fourth strategy is what I call the 20-minute rule. When hunger hits hard, look at the clock and tell yourself you'll reassess in 20 minutes. Set a timer if you need to. Then do anything else during those 20 minutes. Walk, drink water, work on something, whatever, keeps you occupied. When the timer goes off, check in with yourself. More often than not, that intense hunger wave has passed. If it hasn't, drink more water and give it another 10 minutes. This simple technique works because it aligns with the natural wave pattern of ghrelin. The fifth strategy involves what you drink. Black coffee and plain tea are generally considered acceptable during a fast because they contain essentially 0 calories. Both contain caffeine, which acts as a mild appetite suppressant. The warmth of the beverage can also help soothe that empty feeling in your stomach. Just be careful not to overdo it, as too much caffeine can lead to dehydration, which would work against you. The sixth strategy is to know exactly how you'll break your fast. Decide ahead of time what you're going to eat when your eating window opens. Having a clear plan gives your brain a finish line to focus on instead of feeling like the fast stretches on forever. Prepare that meal in advance if possible. Knowing that something delicious and nutritious is waiting for you can make the remaining fasting hours feel much more manageable. Now, a word of caution. While hunger during fasting is normal and usually manageable, there are warning signs you shouldn't ignore. If you experience severe dizziness that doesn't go away after 30 minutes, heart palpitations, or a racing heartbeat, confusion, or an inability to think clearly, fainting or feeling like you might faint, or extreme weakness that doesn't improve with rest, these are signals that something may be wrong. Break your fast and consult a healthcare professional. Certain people should be extra careful with fasting or avoid it entirely. This includes pregnant or breastfeeding women, anyone with a history of eating disorders, people with diabetes who use insulin, those with chronic kidney disease, and anyone who is underweight. Fasting should challenge you, but it should never harm you. Listen to your body. So let's bring this all together. Hunger during fasting is not your enemy. It's not your body punishing you for skipping meals. It's simply your body communicating with you, following patterns that can be understood and even changed. Hunger comes in waves that typically last 15 to 20 minutes before subsiding. It follows your old eating schedule, which is why the times you used to eat feel hardest. It's lowest in the morning thanks to millions of years of evolution, and it decreases significantly after just a few days of consistent fasting as your body adapts to the new pattern. When you understand these facts, you stop fighting against your biology and start working with it. You know that a hunger wave will pass if you wait it out. You know that staying hydrated and maintaining electrolytes directly impacts your hunger hormones. You know that keeping busy, both physically and mentally, makes fasting dramatically easier. The first few days might be challenging, but your body is remarkably adaptable. It was designed to handle periods without food, millions of years of human evolution built in systems specifically for this purpose. When you fast, you're not doing something unnatural. You're tapping into an ancient capability that your body still remembers how to use. And here's something that divides the fasting community. Some people say you should always push through hunger because it builds discipline and mental toughness. Others say you should listen to your body and eat if you truly need to. Based on everything we've covered today, which approach makes more sense to you? Let me know in the comments. If this video helped you understand hunger better, consider sharing it with someone who's struggling with fasting. Sometimes knowing the science behind what you're feeling makes all the difference. And if you want to dive deeper into what happens inside your body during extended fasts, check out our video on 7-day fasting. The biological changes are even more dramatic. Remember, every hour you successfully fast, your body is getting better at this. The hunger you feel today will be weaker next week. Trust the process. ride out those waves, and know that you're more capable than you think. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the